Hey, good evening, everybody. Let's call to order the December 11th Regional Council meeting. Before we start, I'd like to acknowledge that the meeting is being held in the traditional territory of the Dene and Cree of the Fort Nelson First Nation, as well as the northern part of the Danezaa People's Territory of Prophet River First Nation. I recognize the enduring presence of the Métis and the contributions to our region. Please be advised that tonight's meeting is available for the public to attend virtually and is being streamed and recorded. I have one addition, which is a letter from the Minister of Health regarding transportation, and we'll add it for information as, where am I? Information 8.4. Sorry, 8.5. That's all I had. Is there anything from staff?
No, Mayor.
Okay, council, anything to add? Okay, thank you. Is there anybody online that from the public that would like to comment on anything on tonight's agenda? There's none. Thank you. Adoption of the agenda is in order, please. Moved by Councillor Souls, second by Councillor Dickey. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. There are 4 sets of minutes there. Committee of the Whole, November 20th, Committee of the Whole, November 22nd, Regional Council, November 27th, and Committee of the Whole, November 27th. Need to adopt those. Moved by Councillor Gerwing, second by Councillor Souls. Are there any errors or omissions? Seeing none, all in favor of adoption? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Is there any business arising from those minutes? Council? Staff? Thank you. Okay, so that brings us to 7.1 on the agenda, which is administration report number 69, which is an update on the secondary arena bleachers. Good evening. Welcome back. Floor is yours.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and Council. So with this report today, I'm just back with an update on the bleacher progress. After we met in October 10th with the last report, we continued working with the consultants, and I think we made some good progress with that. Some big changes to the number of seating. We went from 151 that we had originally proposed down to 100, but with that, we raised the seating up. So we feel that this was going to be 100 seats that are actually beneficial and usable for all the people. The concerns with the other ones being too low, not being able to see the full range of play. So I think this is going to be a good addition. And in doing this, we were also able to secure some wheelchair accessible seating, which is a huge benefit to that. We've also met with our one of our plumbing and heating contractors and gotten a proposal for adding additional heat by utilizing some of the existing structure that we have, being able to extend the heating and add a bigger burner so we can add more heating to cover this whole surface. And even as an interim, for the bleachers that we do have, we had them lower the heaters that are in there already. And we've already heard some very positive reviews and some big success that way. So we're pretty excited. Yeah.
Thanks for us sitting.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about the players on the ice, but huge difference. So thank you.
It's one of those ones we wish we thought of a while ago. Yeah.
So public input does have have its merits. And
yeah, for sure, it's huge. So we're happy to see this project going through. So this was just for information for you guys, and but if you had any feedback for me, I'm open and welcome to all that.
Thank you. Are there any comments?
Yeah,
Councillor Garvey, please.
Thank you. So you mentioned the word that the heating will improve the heat for the whole surface. Do you mean the whole surface of the bleachers or the whole surface of the arena? Like, is it going to be warmer for those playing on the ice?
Just for the bleacher seating. So it'll just be an expansion of the radiant heaters over top of the bleachers. In order to go any further for the whole space, we would have to essentially do another project where we'd have to install additional heating system in there.
Right. So I know we're just speaking about the bleachers, and I like the improved design. So very much in favor of what I'm seeing here, but I don't want to lose sight of possibly the next project of heating. And I see Mr. Barry is going to speak, so maybe there's something in the queue.
If I may, Johnny.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the issue at that particular, the secondary surface is actually a lack of insulation in that building, the way it was designed. So we're working on getting some costs to look at doing a study. So most likely you'll see on for the 24 budget costs to cover basically a study of design to determine what the scope of work would be to insulate that facility appropriately, or that building section of the building, I guess, appropriately, and install appropriate heat to basically increase the ambient air temperature, similar to what's on the main ice surface. So it's not just a matter of just adding heat, just because of the way the building's designed and currently insulated.
Well, it's all, you're trying to freeze water, so adding heat into a building that you're trying to freeze water in is counterproductive, and if you do heat it wrong, the ice that you do on the surface starts to get. So it has to work in
It
conjunction
has a
with
work
each other.
conjunction. The roof panels don't have proper insulation on them, so you'll start probably getting condensation, melting of snow on the roof
Yeah.
itself and stuff. So there's a
Yeah.
fair bit to go into it, but we have to understand. So we'll get an idea of the scope of work is, and we'll be putting information forward to council. So it's not lost, it's just not a simple.
Thank you.
So with respect to the costs around what you've done so far, so the increased operational costs of the heaters, potential capital increase, is that being handled with this year's operational budget? Are we sort of looking after that with what we have?
The current stuff is occurring in this year's operational.
And we're just finalizing the grant.
Yeah.
So it'll go in this week. It'll be in for the fall intake, and hopefully we can maximize the usage of that NDIT grant.
Right, 250,000, I think,
I
or,
think it was 150 at 70%, but it maxes at 100 for available funds.
right. Okay, perfect.
Awesome.
Any
Thank
other
you, Mayor.
questions? Thank you, Mr. Roberts, for your time
Thank you.
Thank you.
and your good news.
Good job.
Good job. Okay, that brings us to 7.2, Accessible BC Administration Report 7023 and the accessible parking request. Welcome again.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So this report is in follow-up to the letter that was received as correspondence or for discussion at the November 27th meeting from the Northern Rockies Accessibility and Inclusion Committee. And it essentially provides some background information about the request for street parking, and also background information on the committee itself, as well as the other committee, the Northeast Accessibility. Happy to answer any questions.
I think the report is pretty good. Questions, council? Anybody?
Yeah, just have
Okay,
one question,
sure.
one quick one. In the recommendations, the last one, it says that and regional councils support NRM's participation in Northeast accessibility. What does define support look? What does that look like?
So the committee was established this year and it's being facilitated by a consultant. So this year it was a fund to pay for the consultant between all of the members. So it's anticipated that will continue next year. I'm not sure that we have an exact budget for it yet, for how much that is. But along with the other member communities, we're kind of constantly looking at what that will look like, as it's a new endeavor.
And it includes the staff time as well?
Yeah, and so in 2023, there was an accessibility budget designated. So the funds for our participation that came out of that accessibility budget, I think it was around 5,000. So that might be what it looks like in 2024. And I think it will probably come up in the budget discussion.
Go ahead.
Just trying to frame my question. So if this is something that we wanted to move forward with, would we want to put a cap? I'm just like a little uncomfortable support, like regional council support NRM's participation without knowing what that means, because it's pretty open-ended support, like to a maximum of 5,000, 10,000, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, support seems to be really open-ended.
I don't know. I'm looking to staff to see if they've got even a ballpark figure.
I think you can, no, because we haven't really gotten to that level of detail per se with, I would say 5,000 would most likely cover it. We were basically invited to the table to participate with the other neighboring communities, right? So
Yeah.
it was good to be invited for one, and also it brings a broader outreach in terms of, what we're trying to accomplish locally here, but we wanted to continue the local component, of course. The support was council acknowledging we're part of it essentially, and the budget component we could bring forward as part of the budget process, which we would be intending to do anyway.
Yeah.
So if anything, the intent today as part of this was so council was aware that we were in this endeavor and partnering with the other groups.
I mean, I fully support our participation in Northeast accessibility. Just don't want to just do carte blanche in terms of support. So
For sure.
if we could change that word, participation maybe, instead of support, then I wouldn't have a problem with it.
Because the support could always come, a resolution of support could come later, once we know the. Right, so it would read, and that the regional council participate, or the regional council, sorry, that the NRM participate. And that, yeah, that the NRM participate in the Northeast. Yeah, it's almost all there already. Okay. Any problems with that, Staff? That would be good?
If anything, it was just the endorsement that we're.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I
I
100%.
understand you.
Yeah, 100% endorse it for sure, but
the first two is really what we're talking about today, and
Yes.
you know, is the parking bit, and then the access or the participation is kind of an add-on, and we can figure out what that looks like at budget time. Okay, would somebody like to make this recommendation so that the public knows what we're talking about? Please, would you read it?
come up with the words.
No, just read what's there. Yes, please.
Okay. That staff work with the Northern Rockies Accessibility and Inclusion Committee to identify temporary on-street accessible parking throughout Fort Nelson, and that permanent on-street accessible parking be established in spring of 2024 following engagement with relevant business owners, and that regional councils support the approach taken to establish the Northern Rockies Accessibility and Inclusion Committee, and that regional council supports staff's participation in Northeast accessibility. And I don't know if staff is the right word, but I just made that up.
It's close. Do I have a seconder for that, please? Second by Councillor Dickey. Any further discussion? This is a little bit of a double-edged sword. It's great that we're doing it, but once you start adding a lot of accessible parking, of course, that's only for you diminish the amount of parking for everybody else. So it's kind of, it's good that there's a discussion with the business owners and the inclusion committee to sort of plan that, because you want to make sure there's enough parking. What we seem to have now. I can remember back in the day though, and every parking stall downtown, both sides of the street were full, and this would create some headaches because there'd be open stalls that aren't being used and people would be swinging into them, I'm sure. But yeah, a good problem to have. Yeah. So I'm glad that we're doing this. It's just, you have to consider all of it when we do it. So it's good. Yes, please.
So when we talk accessibility, does that include people who have handicaps, or is that moms and babies? Or in Port Hardy, they have a 55 and over parking spot in front of the drugstore, in front of Overweedy, the liquor store. So accessibility is broader than just a handicap.
Yeah.
So could they be multi-purpose for those types of community members?
So the accessible parking permitted signs are, that's a process that happens through the physicians and is regulated, but there could be other provisions added, say mom and tot parking or seniors parking or whatever. Accessibility as a whole, like the Accessibility and Inclusion Committee, is for a whole host of mobility challenges, attitudinal barriers, sensory, non-visible disabilities. So it is overarching.
Good answer.
Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thank you. Then that brings us to 7.3 on the agenda, which is admin report 7123. Recruitment, retention, education, training incentive program, the updates. After we've had a report a couple weeks ago, staff has come forward with some updates. Would you like to talk about them, staff, please?
Sure. So we are just reflecting back to the revised program that integrates the recommendations from Mr. Blackie's review of the program a few weeks back, as well as council's request that one of the criteria or one of the requirements of an applicant is that they participate in future reviews of the program. And then also that if an application meets the criteria, that it's kind of approved on the fly. So it doesn't have to come back to council for approval. But of course, if there's any discretion required or if it doesn't meet the criteria as outlined, it would come to council for your review. So those were just adjustments made beyond those recommendations that were presented on September 7th. And then just a note that we intend to undertake that work of speaking with health employers in the new year to really review those professions of focus that receive a premium on the incentive payments, to just confirm that they're still in demand or difficult to fill, I guess, because there has been some changes to the staffing profile at the hospital, for example, and within the clinic. So just to make sure that it reflects the needs of the community and that we're putting those incentives in the right places. And then there was one other point of discussion that we thought we would probably bring up at budget time, but it was just a review of the values of the scholarships. So currently council awards 2 annual medical scholarships in the amount of $2,000 each. And some of the feedback we heard when we were introducing the program to some of the health employers was that if a community really wants to foster that grow your own approach, that the value of the scholarships maybe should be reviewed, given $2,000 might not be a true incentive to pursue a career in the medical field. So there's obviously lots of ways to go about it, but those values haven't changed since they were established shortly after Dr. Cass's passing. So just food for thought. We can definitely discuss it at budget time, but it was just one other flag that we had on the program as we were going through it.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments for staff? I have just a couple. I think I like what I see. Just clarification on if staff makes the reporting out from staff to council. I guess council's not going to make the decision if everything falls in according to the policy. Staff will make that decision, and then they'll inform us, right? Okay, because I didn't hear you say that. So
Sorry. Yeah. So
Yeah.
we've got it scheduled for quarterly reports.
Okay.
Council.
good. Yeah, and with respect to scholarship, probably, if we truly want to look at that, we probably should be looking like at some kind of an ongoing thing if we want to develop docs or medical professionals from within, which will be more money. Maybe an ongoing support for them, throughout their entire education or something like that. Because I think I said it earlier that, they get coming out of high school, and I guess it's after the first year they get the payment for their $2,000 scholarship, but I'm not even sure if the student knows really what they want to be in that medical, they're going towards a medical profession, but do they really know what they want after that first year? And so then they decide, and that's when they might need some help and some money. And bigger help to really steer them once they've been in it for a year or two, And that might be how we models the Ready. I think it's just part of the Ready program, not just a scholarship program, right? And yeah,
A good conversation.
yeah, good. So I'm looking forward to that. So, there's a recommended resolution there that we adopt this.
Somebody else want to practice their reading?
Sure, please.
Put your mic on then.
Option number one, that the revised Northern Rockies Regional Municipality Recruitment, Retention, Education and Training Initiative Program be adopted as presented.
Moved by Counselor Souls, second by Counselor Gerwing. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. That brings us to correspondence. 8.1, a letter from the South Peace Health Services Society, a letter of request, request for a letter of support for the Balturi's house in Dawson Creek. Motion to move that for discussion, please. Moved by Counselor Gerwing, second by Counselor Dickey. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. So I've received a letter from Dale Bumstead, the former mayor of Dawson Creek, who really was instrumental in getting that whole program going in the first place. Again, supporting it and requesting that we give this letter of support. I'm in agreement with it. You know, I'm surprised at the minute. Well, am I surprised? Maybe I'm not surprised that the ministry's pulling out, but it's yeah, it's just something that's good for ourselves. It's good for Indigenous residents that might need to go to Dawson Creek, and the more that people travel, it's not free, but $30 night stay is quite a bit better than $150 or $200 at a hotel. So, given a little bit of time, I think most people could get in if they really needed to. So, I'm in favor of a letter of support. Any other thoughts?
I think that I too am in favor of supporting this because I think that facilities like this that are community driven to get started, so on, they actually save the Ministry of Health money.
In the long run, you're probably right. Yeah. So would somebody like to make this request resolution?
Your turn.
Leslie?
Yeah.
Would you read it for the folks at home? Yeah, it's all right. I'll read it then. It's on the first page. So, yeah, that a letter of support be provided to the South Peace Health Services and. Okay. The motion reads that a letter of support be provided to the South Peace Health Services Society and that the Mayor and Council, the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality, recognize the importance of affordable patient accommodation to access healthcare, and that the Ministry of Health continues to fully support the funding of the Balturi's house operation. Moved by Councillor D. So seconder, Councillor Gerwing. Thank you. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That's carried. There are four pieces of correspondence for information. The letter from, I'm not even going to try to pronounce it, Port Nelson Indian Reserve number 2, regarding the community forest, the letter from the Deputy Minister, Teresa Dommeyer, the council information package, and then the letter from the Minister of Health, Mr. Dix. We'll move all four of those for information, please. Moved by Councillor Going, second by Councillor Souls. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Very much. 9.1 says new business from me, but I'm actually going to put that underneath a notice of motion. So that brings us to the standing items for discussion. Councillor reports. Anybody have any reports? Councillor Growing, please.
So November 27th, I attended the Seniors Roundtable. This group is working on delivering a seniors health fair, June 3rd to the 7th of 2024. The fair will focus on health and wellness specific to seniors. More information will be coming. November 29th, the mayor and I met with Angela DeSmith from Northern Health. She spoke about staffing, which remains a challenge, and are using agency staff in most areas in the hospital. CT, well, is reworking the design, will include an X-ray update and should be presented soon. Northern Health has embarked on a 10-year diagnostic review throughout the north. And I wrote down here, hopefully our project doesn't get lost in the process, but as we learned today, I don't know what to say anymore. We discussed how Northern Health could do a better job in communicating all the successes, upgrades, etc. at the Fort Nelson General Hospital. The mayor suggested creating an information dashboard that could be shared within the community. Also on the 29th, I did an interview with staff and the OCP contractors. And December 1st, I attended the Community Health Plan Steering Committee. Just a few updates. Ultrasound's most recent visit was November 17th to the 22nd and was fully booked. There continues to be a significant number of no-shows, and due to the nature of ultrasound, you can't always fill them in quickly. Airport Way Medical Clinic experiences significant no-shows as well. The next ultrasound dates are December 11th to the 14th. At this time, there are 150 patients currently on the wait list for ultrasound, and it's so frustrating for everyone, plus a waste of resources to have a number of shows, so many people on a wait list. And I just I'm just wondering if there's something that we can do, and I will continue to bring it up at the CHP, but I don't know if we want to have a discussion now or at another time about working to try to reduce these number of no-shows. Also at the CHP, it was brought up that seniors have concerns around internet hacking, and safety in general was discussed. The Fort Nelson Community Literacy Society will be hosting workshops to address these concerns. The wellness van has been very well received and experiencing good uptake. Lack of community transportation was discussed and a few experience shared. For example, getting to the food bank during the winter months is a barrier. Transportation back home from the hospital after being taken there by ambulance, and you have no means to get back home. And transportation to various seniors' lunches and programs, etc., is problematic for some. Not everyone has $5 to purchase the day pass, so BC Emergency Health Services are experiencing difficulty with that. The foundation reported that they did some Christmas decorating at the hospital again. Hopefully the bed races will be coming back in 2024, and you should see more action from the hospital foundation in 2024. BC Emergency Health Services visited Toad River to determine what needs there are. The goal is for them to visit once a month. They're working to order new AEDs, and then BC Emergency Health Services will do some training at Toad. Toad is experiencing an increasing transient population and would like some training on mental health response. So I know at the Literacy Society, we're working on getting some training for our staff because we're experiencing the same thing. And so I don't know whether it's something that we can work together, or if the NRM is doing any training, please let the not-for-profits know, because we really need it as well. Additionally, they would like to have, I'm talking about Toad, would like to have first responder training, and BC Emergency Health Services will deliver and can supply some soft supplies. Back to Fort Nelson, Dr. Alex Hall will be adding a diabetic foot care clinic at her place of business, and it should be open in February. They're just waiting for some last minute licensing stuff. And increased palliative care in the community is needed. The goal is to have patient-driven end of care opportunities, and they're looking to form a group to discuss options. Villers Air has been used one additional time and is hopeful that the trend will increase. They will keep their King Air ready to go with a crew in town over the holiday. On December 3rd, I was at the Parade of Lights, and it was wonderful to see so many residents out watching. and to have such a great, the NRM participated in force. So it was wonderful to see that. And also the Christmas tree light up. And so I just wanted to congratulate, well done for everyone involved. Sorry, it's really long. December 6th, I attended the community roundtable meeting. Multiple agencies presented information on community services, programs, and events. Mark your calendars for 2024 Northern Lights Festival taking place March 8th to the 16th. And December 7th, I attended the Northern Rockies Roundtable, and topics up for discussion included wood bison recovery up highway. Apparently multiple vehicle and bison incidents are taking place with the bisons being so close to the highway. And Moose and LEH and government's approach going forward on this need input on this decision. A lot of NRM residents use moose for subsistence. Wildlife updates, there was a brief conversation around caribou, and the table feels that this is overdue for re-examination of this topic, as they feel there are viable herds in the NRM. And then there was a large discussion on the Nanda Tower Road, and with the NRM doing a brief update. And then they also spoke about the Davis Keys claim, and 3 to 4 core drilling will take place up there in 2024. The company that's doing that was there last year as well, called Fable Copper Company. And yeah, they came across as really good corporate citizens, and the residents of Toad felt that they were really good to work with. That's my report. Thanks.
Good. It makes mine shorter. Because you and I attended many of the same meetings. So, I'm gonna start, I guess the 28th, last meeting was the 27th. 28th, I had a meeting with Brian Fair from Peak Renewables. We had a discussion about his plans for removing the equipment at the site now, and my intent for going into that meeting was to probe him to do a community meeting to bring the community up to date, but I didn't have to probe him at all. He had it in his mind already, and unfortunately he wanted to do it like within a week, which really, we had some emails back and forth, really didn't give us time, I don't believe, to put on an effective public meeting. So he agreed to put off the meeting until sometime early in January, where he will speak to what's happening at the old OSB plant and what his company's plans are in the future, and we'll answer any questions from anybody in the audience that wants to ask a question. So he's prepared to do that. 29th, I also met with Angela DeSmit, and I think the only other thing I had besides in my note, when I don't take a lot of notes, not as closely as you do, that's for sure, was we threw the idea out of this chartered flight with Villers Air from here for medical appointments, and the idea of coordinating them. And Angela seemed to think it was a good idea. We always thought that the coordination of appointments was going to be the barrier, not the actual transportation. And she said that they're doing a lot of that for First Nations communities now, and that and perhaps that's something we can dovetail into. So the signs for that are interesting. 29th, I did my interview with the Rural Emergency Health Services. Talked a lot about, well, I didn't talk a lot. They wanted me to talk a lot about online, the online assistance that doctors are getting an emergency, and I didn't know an awful lot about it, so I couldn't offer. I offered my personal story about my heart attack and how they got me to Vancouver, and in my case the whole system worked really well as it is, and so I let them know that. We talked about transportation and billers and the fact that they're not using them. I also brought up this idea of a scheduled medical appointment flight. Although it's not about emergency care, it definitely is a novel idea that potentially we can work with lots of agencies on to try to make that happen. So that was that interview. December 3rd, I did the watched the Christmas light up parade, and then did the Santa tree light up. Successfully navigated my way through Santa Claus is Coming to Town on the mic karaoke style. I think it was a great night, a great opportunity, and I know many of you couldn't make it, but it was a great opportunity to converse with parents of school-age children who don't get to come out to our events very often because they're busy looking after their kids. So, you know, and that was another one of the places where, you know, I quizzed people about why they didn't come out to the bear meeting. You know, I mean, I know it was about Santa Claus, but it's an opportunity to speak with people that you don't get quite a big opportunity to speak. So I asked about the bear meeting. People just didn't know. And they either weren't made aware of or don't use our online service. And it was just another reinforcement because when I met with, I had lunch at the Lamplighters, where I got my first Black Oak bingo, by the way, in my life. I also asked, you know, some of the seniors why they didn't show up, and well, I just wish we had the newspaper. I just wish we had a place that we could read this information. I don't go online. I don't follow Facebook. So with all the best intentions, you know, there are many people out there who are trying to get their information out digitally, and it just doesn't seem to be working. And so I have another idea that I'll bring up later, but that came out of the Christmas light up and the lunch Lamplighters. On the 6th, I also was at the round table meeting here, and I launched the same idea with those folks, and I think there was general acceptance that a community newsletter is something that people would be interesting in. Then that afternoon, I went to the open house at MLA Davies' office, talked about politics in general and in specific, and not much about anything at all, except everything. You know how those open houses go. So, but it was a good opportunity to, again, to meet with Dan and create those relationships, which haven't always been smooth between him and I in the past. And then on the 7th, I attended the Northeast Roundtable meeting again. In my notes, I think the only thing I missed, or pardon me, that I had was what Councillor Gerwing didn't speak about. There's some discussion around Skook's Landing and what's happening up there, and the Cascadene are putting on, there's a section 54, I think, which I'm not exactly sure what that all about, but I'm sure it has something to do with the use of that particular landing up the highway on the river. Revisit the LEH code, prescribed burns. Although it was felt that although the province is going to be reluctant to talk about prescribed burns, that it's not so much needing to burn right now, but the process of burning and what it takes, that should be ongoing. And if we get approvals for some of these burns, they might not happen right now, but when the timing is right is when they were going. So they're really continuing to make sure that resources are available to the Northeast Prescribed Fire Council, I think is what they call it, which sounds like it's a group advocating on behalf of prescribed burns in the north. And on the creek, there's some planning going on in the Musqueam. The First Nations are leading that process with respect to, they didn't just, there was planning going on in the Musqueam. They really didn't give a lot of detail on what that looked like, but that the First Nations communities, I think particularly around the Peace, we're looking at leading that process. Next meeting, March the 13th. So that was a busy couple of weeks for both of us, I think. Anybody have any questions? Anybody else have any thing to talk about? Okay. Then that brings us down to the notice of motion. And I would like to, I guess, declare that I will bring up a motion in the first meeting in January that talks about or asks council to authorize staff to look into the process and resource requirements for doing a hard copy newsletter, which would also be distributed electronically. That will pull together, you know, all of the work that's happening by the various groups in the community into a place where, and into a document that can be distributed for people to read and understand what's happening in the community, just to try to get more information out. So we'll talk about that. Sure.
Because when we were at the CRT, there was somebody there that mentioned that the Chamber of Commerce is currently looking at doing something like that. And so maybe the NRM and the Chamber can work together to create this document and then also in distributing it.
Yeah, so yeah, the motion will be for staff to bring back a report to us at the end of January, hopefully, and we can make a decision at that time. So first meeting in January is to actually get the motion on the floor, and then the second meeting is if that first one is approved, the second one be and to look at whatever report the staff brings forward. Good. Okay. That was my notice of motion. Is there any public that are interested in asking a question? Seeing none, a resolution to move to closed to talk about labor relations and other employee relations. Moved by Councillor Souls, second by Councillor Gerwig. Thank you very much. That we move in camera. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. Thank you. So we are finished the in-camera personnel regional council meeting. That brings us back into the regular regional council meeting. We do not have a report to rise with, so adjournment is in order. Want to make sure I got everything. Adjournment is in order. Okay. Moved by Councillor Souls, second by Councillor Dickey. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you, everybody. Good discussion tonight.